The 9 Years Podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 63 of the 9 Years Podcast, the nation's favourite AFC Wimbledon audio fanzine, and we thank you very much for joining us, whether it be through iTunes, YouTube, or 9yrspodcast.org. My name is Nick Draper, joined once again by Stuart Deakins. How are you this week, Stu?
Very good, Nick, very good.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm not as good as your good self, I'm afraid to say, mainly because I just think, I don't know, I think I need a haircut. I just can't be bothered to go and get it done. Do you have that problem?
No, anyone that knows me, my hairstyle is always the same, bald.
See, luckily I'm still in that position where mine grows, it just doesn't stop growing, and now I've got to get another haircut. It's been a while since I've been. Do you know what? The last time I actually went, the barber, the male hairdresser, turned out to be a Wimbledon fan that had been to the playoff final at Wembley. And
Okay.
You know what he said to me when I left said barbershop in Surbiton?
What?
He said, "Do you know what?" He said, "You've got a bit of a look of Neil Ivey about you. Do you know that? Has anyone ever said that to you?" And I was thinking, yes, people have said that to me, mainly myself. But I think there is a likeness there. I think if you were to see us, you wouldn't be able to tell us apart.
I think the only similarities you both have a scruffy haircut. That's the only similarities, mate.
Is his scruffy, or is his just a little, I don't know. I've always felt he had a bit of a unique hairstyle.
Who, Neil Ardley?
Well, yeah, well, you can say that about me as well if you wish, but
It's just scruffy, in it. That's mainly what it is.
fair enough. But do you not think there's a likeness there? Myself, Neil, put us together in a room, tell us apart?
No,
Just me?
just you.
All right, fair enough. I guess we'll leave that one there then. Move on to top 7 lists. We've got top 7 lists this week.
I have, yes. I've gone for something topical, FA Cup. First round, everyone loves the FA Cup, so I've gone for my top 7 attended FA Cup games of all time for me.
By attended, you mean you've attended, not just anyone's attended it?
Oh no, I've attended, sorry,
Okay.
Let me clarify that.
Go on in.
Okay, so in no particular order, first one was our first round in November 2009, a 4-1 defeat to Millwall. Second, our quarter-final of the FA Cup in March 1996, a 2-2 draw at Stamford Bridge. Thirdly, this is my first ever away game for Wimbledon, so it's very memorable for me. Even though it was a 1-0 defeat away to Shrewsbury in the 4th round in 1991. Next, our first real encounter with a decent team was our 2-1 defeat at Exeter in the final qualifying round in 2006. And then, probably one of the games we mentioned many a time, and I think we will do, a first round replay in November 2010, and the famous John Fashionley was seen running down the Ebbsfleet wing after we scored a goal. Sammy Moore, late winner. After that, we've got the 4th round replay. 1-0 home win to Manchester United. A Marcus Gale header. And finally, this is one of my best ones because I remember wearing an England jacket stupidly to the home of Wrexham. This was a 3rd round replay in January 1998 when a 3-2 win at Wrexham with a Michael Hughes double when a 3-2 win.
Good list. Great
Thanks.
list. So for my top 7 list this week, I've taken inspiration from a tweet we received from David Peters at DavidPeters_, who asked, maybe we should do a top 7 list about the greatest things about Beryllands for the show, as I am a Beryllands resident. So I thought, do you know what, David? That's a great shout. So here you go, my top 7 list, the best things or the best reasons to live in Beryllands. I'm going to start with the high number of hairdressers per square foot. Apparently it has the highest number of hairdressers per square foot than any other Surrey/London neighbourhood. We've also got the inadequate household waste and recycling facilities, the proliferation of urban foxes, the Beryllands Companion, an A5 glossy brochure that gets posted through your letterbox for free once a month, full of adverts for local businesses, recipes for baked goods and tips on how best to use your garden waste, potholes, and by this, I mean the holes in the road. I'm not sure what else you might interpret that as being, but I mean by holes in the road. The smell from the sewage works, particularly in the summer. And finally, the best thing about living in Beryllands is the fact that it's not Watford.
How have you found 7 things on Beryllands? I was getting really right. You started off really well. But of course, then you had to go to sewage, which we can all smell from Kings Meadow.
Yeah, which is interesting because I did finish on sewage. Watford.
Fucking Watford.
This week's show is the Don's Trust Election Manifesto show. We've spoken to all 6 candidates for elections to Don's Trust Board this year. There are 4 spots available, so you'll hear our interviews with all 6 candidates later. We've also got all the regular features. We'll look ahead to the week's games. We've got Poleon Go. Jane Lonsdale will be joining us later as well to discuss the WebJam project. But we shall begin, as we always do, with a look back at last week's action. Bradford City at home. An entertaining game. We lost in the end 3-2. A late winner from James Hansen for Bradford, who also scored the equalising penalty. Should we start with the penalties on the game, Stu? We got one, they got one. What were your thoughts? Were both correctly awarded? Both were well taken, but was the referee right in giving them?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we were on the Paul Strang stand this time, weren't we? So from our penalty, I thought it was a penalty from where I was, in terms of it looked like Jake just got there and nipped it away from the defender and went over a leg. However, when I saw it back on TV, I wasn't as sure as I was when I was actually at the game. So I think we were. It's one of those ones that you go, yeah, take it. If it's against you, go. There wasn't much of a touch. There wasn't much of a challenge there, but the referee was close by and gave the penalty. There, one at a time, I must admit, I was a bit concerned how Jake never really got control of the ball. He seemed to be a little bit everywhere and diving at people's feet, and generally his erraticness in the area made me uncomfortable. So when the referee gave the penalty, I was like, I can probably see what he's giving it for. However, looking back, there's not much there. There's not much there at all.
They equalised, and then we made a couple of substitutions. Neil Lardley normally gets his substitution spot on, but was this one of those occasions where you can't always get it right, can you?
And like I say, our strengths are normally our subs, but it was a case of where they bought their subs on and bought Mark McNulty up front. They bought on to partner Hansen, and it just felt that their subs made them stronger. Our subs just didn't really give the impact, and I wouldn't say made us weaker because they were good subs, but just never gave us that drive. And we started losing the effect of Tom Elliott, who held everything up in the air. He was excellent on Saturday again. But we just didn't get that with Barnett. And like I say, it's not to have a go at Barnett, because I thought, he's done well in previous games when he's come on. But I just think the tide had turned a little bit, and Bradford were on the ascendancy of attacking. And Stuart McCall, interestingly, said in his post-match interview that they sensed that Women's legs were gone. And I think it summed it up perfectly. We very rarely are we not as fit. We're normally the fitter teams out of what teams we played, but on this occasion Bradford were just a lot fitter, and in the end I still think we could have got a draw, and the cross is disappointing. The run across Paul Robinson to get nothing, I think was pretty cruel on us, really.
I mentioned to you during the game, whilst Tom Elliott was playing, that he was showing up, his opposite number 9, James Hansen for Bradford, number 9. Someone that I think we're very familiar with, probably going back a few years to Bradford's run in the League Cup when they got to the League Cup final. He sort of came to our attention. But on the day, Tom Elliott seemed to be the bigger threat for the two teams. Lo and behold, Hansen then shows his quality in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, but only once we then started getting deeper. It was an interesting thing, wasn't it? The impact Tom Elliott had was that he held the ball up and allowed us to attack. We didn't if you look at the game from, we were on the side this time. So if you looked at it, a lot of times we were knocking the ball long into Tom Elliott, and no one was really getting beyond him. A lot of times Tom was either chesting it or holding it or playing it off to a wide player. No one really was getting in behind him and breaking through. For exception really for the penalty, but Tom wasn't involved in that. But once Tom went off, we just never held the ball up, and in the end we just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And the thing is, if you invite balls, where the first half the balls were coming in from probably halfway line to Hansen, we could deal with them all day long. If you look at the cross is what, on the level of the penalty area, isn't it? So you get crossed in from them sort of angles, you're going to give Hansen's going to give you all sorts of trouble.
What did you make of Bradford as a whole? They're currently 3rd in the table. You look at the league table, and we've lost to all of the top 4 teams. I think we've lost 5 games this season, and 4 of them will come to the current top 4. Where would you rank Bradford amongst the likes of Scunthorpe, Bolton and Sheffield United?
I'd probably say they're the fourth out of them teams. I'd probably say out of them 4 teams, they're the weaker ones out of them. Bradford have got some good players. You know, if you look at Billy Clark, Hanson, Law in midfield, who was at Rangers last year, I believe, wasn't it? Nicky Law. He ran the show for the first half an hour. Couldn't get near him. But then if you look at their back foot, I don't think their defence is that strong. Knight Percival, I remember going back when we were League Two, and Kilgallen, left back, Lyle Taylor gave him a merry dance. And I think he was pleased when Lyle went off. So I just don't feel that they have as good a defence as the other 3. And if I was going to be a betting man, I still say all day long Scunthorpe are going to win a league by, I reckon, about 5 points easy. Bearing in mind, as long as they keep Josh Morris. If they lose Josh Morris in the window, they're in trouble. But I think Bradford are probably out of the 4 teams are the fourth out of that lot.
Disappointing defeat, but it was an entertaining game. Could the referee have got his yellow card out a little bit earlier? Yeah,
he's a little bit frustrated. He's another one of these referees that give nothing for fouls, but as soon as someone backchatted him, gave him a yellow card. I find it amazing in this day and age that you've got more chance of getting a yellow card for showing dissent by, I don't know, gesturing towards a linesperson, challenging a linesperson, or even throwing a ball down in disgust. You've got more chance of getting booked than you have going through the back of somebody nowadays, which I just find pathetic, really.
Fair enough. So, tidying up our bits and pieces, man of the match poll on Twitter that goes up after every single game at 9YRS Podcast. Team this week selected our 4 options as Tom Elliott, George Frankham, Will Nightingale and Lyle Taylor. Landslide this week for Tom Elliott was 65% of the vote. Will Nightingale, second start in the league, consecutive start in the league, 17%. George Frankham and Lyle Taylor on 9% each, but Tom by miles this week the winner, and deserved, especially if you base on what Stu was saying there. 3-word reports, some good ones this week. Let's start with the Show Me the Way to Plough Lane account at All Things AFCW. They went for Performance Deserved More, which was a feeling shared by the majority on Saturday. We've got Cyrus here at Gilbert Rolfe. I think a first appearance on the show for Cyrus. He went for Still Looking Good. Of course, we're still in the top half. We're still overachieving, or at least we're doing better than we thought as a fan base we would be doing. Clear winner this week, though. Ray Armfield back on the show, Stu.
What's he coming with now?
He went for Hanson Bops Dons. Do you know what? Before we did our match put, before I put our one up and asked for others, I was desperately trying to think of an Bop reference. I couldn't come up with one. He just did a very, very simple, straight to the point. Should have thought of it, really, but perfect. A worthy winner this week.
Of course.
Now, I'm going to introduce a new feature to the show now, based on Saturday's game with Bradford. This feature is going to be called Nick's List of Change Kit Shame. Now, I know we've had this conversation many times, haven't we, Stu, especially when it comes to our good selves and our change from our traditional blue colour when perhaps it's not necessary for us to do so.
We have, yes.
So now I'm going to make this a formal list. As from the 29th of October 2016, should I attend a game where the away side is a change kit for no conceivable, realistic reason, then they're going to go onto my list of shame. So I've invited WWE wrestler Chris Jericho to help me out with this, and he is going to announce that the first team on this list is going to be Bradford City. So Bradford City...
You just made the list!
There was no reason for them to be in black, was there?
No.
Claret and amber doesn't clash with our blue.
No, and do you know what? It's one of those things, it's like, when you get into a higher league, part of the thrill is actually seeing these teams come down to your place, and you recognise them by their home kit. So it's like having Man United coming down and playing in grey, like I did years ago at Southampton, and just disappeared. It's just no point. You know, you want to see them in their traditional home kit. And I don't know if it's some sort of market employ, you sometimes feel that, Man City nowadays have got a kit for every round in the European League, which, to be fair, is not going to be very long this season. But yeah, why can't they play in their traditional kit?
Absolutely, exactly as you say. When Liverpool came down to Kings Meadow, we'd have been gutted if they'd have turned up in some random white or purple kit or whatever. You want to see them in their red, don't you? So Bradford City, we wanted to see you in claret and amber, and we got claret and amber, but not in your traditional way, with a lot of black.
And whilst we're there, Nick, we've also noticed this little trend in League One where we're wearing match day tracksuits onto the ground. What's that?
This is true. Tracksuit tops.
Yeah, I just think that's a little bit above your station. I'm trying to think. We had definitely had Swindon Town, didn't they?
Sheffield United did it.
Yeah, well, Sheffield United might have a right to do it because they're doing well in the league. Swindon, no, you're not. You're average. I just find it very funny. You walk on in a tracksuit top, you all take it off, and then some poor kit man has to run behind you like you're some sort of Premiership star. You're not. You're League One. No need for it.
Yeah, as you say, you're League One. You're playing a 2-minute walk away from the Cambridge estate. Ditch the pretentious tracksuits.
Your dressing room's a throwaway as well. It's not a big ground we've got.
No, it looks a little bit out of place, but never mind. On to bigger and better things. Under 21s, update from them this week, and the ladies maybe as well.
Yeah, so let's just go to bad news. Unfortunately, the ladies lost 1-0 at home to Cambridge on the weekend. Cambridge have been flying high. I think they were second, so they're more likely to be top now. My understanding was we had Paul Raymond from the 9-Year podcast team down there taking some pictures. Said it's a close game. I think we had a goal disallowed for offside, but it was a tight game, but lost by the odd goal. The under 21s on Monday night progressed through nicely again from their win over Peterborough on last week. They beat Swindon, who had a few first teamers in there as well. Goals from Maliki, which was in the second minute, a penalty from Ejikaja after David Fitzpatrick was fouled, and then a 25-yard shot from David Fitzpatrick himself. It was 3-1, so that was good. And then probably the result of the weekend was our under-18s in a 4-0 win somewhere in a park in Buckinghamshire.
Which for the moment will go and remain unnamed.
Yes. But just one of the players that I've got a real big hope for, Anthony Hartigan, scored a hat-trick.
I'm so glad you said hope.
Hope. They're kids, I've been watching the youngsters for long enough now. That sounds dodgy. I've been watching our youth teams for long enough now to realise that potential is not. There's potential, but they've got they've got to get their way through and have a bit of luck along the way. But this player, Anthony Hartigan, good player in midfield, quality midfielder, got a penalty, free kick, and also a drive from 25 yards off the post. He's a good player, one to watch. There's some good players in the under 18s, and I'm sure he will start progressing through to under 21s probably next season.
All right, the Dons Trust Board elections are sort of underway. Voting actually opens on Monday, this coming Monday, the 7th of November. It will remain open for about a month. Closes at 11:59pm on the 28th of November. But there are 6 candidates this year aiming to win one of 4 places available on the board. We spoke to all 6 candidates prior to the Bradford game on Saturday. Just to give a general overview of why they want to get onto the board, what they feel they can contribute, and some of their ideas they have for the Dons Trust and the club moving forward. 6 interviews, 5 or 6 minutes each. You'll hear all 6 candidates. I'll give you more details afterwards. Here we go.
Matthew Breach. I'm an engineering director for Ultra Electronics, and I watch my games from the middle of the John Green stand.
So what roles have you performed over the past 2 years on the Dons Trust board?
I've been chairman of the board for the last 2 years, in fact the last 6 years now, so that's my central role on there, plus I deal with a number of the areas of liaison with the football club board. I work quite closely with Eric on that one, plus run strategy and involved in the comms working group, one or two of the other working groups.
So should you be re-elected this term, how do you see, or how would you like to see your role change?
In some ways, I think the most important part of the chair's role is actually continuity. There are a lot of different views, obviously, on the Dons Trust board itself, within the Dons Trust, wider Dons Trust and the membership, and fans generally. And in some ways, the chair's role is to try and get a consensus and make everything run smoothly, almost the plate spinning. So it's trying to balance the commercial and contractual obligations the football club have through some of the ethical and moralistic aspirations like the Dons Trust members have, and trying to get something that works for all. So really a lot of mine is around trying to minimise change in some ways, so it's incremental and we gradually improve year on year as an organisation, which hopefully, certainly over the last 6 years, we've moved up for the conference to now League One playoff positions. It's looking pretty good. We can always improve communication. That's a never-ending struggle. Things change, we move on, trying to get more engagement with the members. Every year we do more things to try and improve. This year we've got Web Jam and obviously recruiting Matt Spriegel in to be a link to the younger membership, but it's never-ending struggle. We could always do more. I think most of the other areas need tinkering, not wholesale change.
And what are your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years on the pitch and off the pitch?
Well, I think off the pitch first, because the most important thing is the new stadium, getting in there, getting stable in there, and generating the income out the new stadium. Because on the pitch, frankly, we've overachieved to get where we are. Our income levels and our wage budget are League 2 level, and Neil's done wonders getting us to where we are. We're going to be able to sustain that and give him more money to look upwards rather than downwards. We need to have that success off the pitch and the money generating a new stadium. So I think it's that way around. In 5 years' time, we're bedding a new stadium. I think we could be genuinely looking to try and crack the Championship as opposed to overachieving to get to where we are.
Perfect. Just some either or quick fire questions then to finish off. Stainstown or Hampton and Richmond?
Ooh, tricky one. Staines, close to home.
Do you prefer to travel on the coach or by a train?
I prefer the train. I can read, can't read on a coach.
And finally, do you prefer Tom Beer or fatter women?
I think I have to go for Tom Beer on that one, but it depends on the context, obviously.
My name's Cormac van der Hoeven. I'm a teacher at a high school in Wimbledon, and I sit, if you're going into the pool strength stand in the middle, I sit on that seat on the right. The important people in the president's box, I'm sat bang on the right there, on the front row with my dad.
What roles have you performed over the year at the club? What have you done? What have you been doing in the last year?
So over the last year, I've been a turnstile volunteer since the Millwall friendly in August 2015, and that's a role I've performed on a match day, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great responsibility to have on a match day, and I look forward to perhaps when we move to Plough Lane, maybe more young volunteers will come forward to fulfil that duty. And I've attended trust meetings, the general meetings, and on all occasions I've spoken from the floor, and yeah, that's what I've fulfilled this year.
So you saw election last year as well, just missed out unfortunately, but for this coming campaign then, what changes are you thinking about instigating as a Dons Trust Board member should you get on this time?
Well, I think perhaps, the boys in school tell a great story how on the page when they announced it, it said Cormac van der Hoeven has not been elected, everyone else has. That's the story they like reminding me of. And I think what I learned was that this time round, I want to be very clear about, in a 2-year term, what I would want to achieve. And so in my manifesto, I've made that very clear about implementing the volunteer structure that was referenced at a previous general meeting. When we talk about wanting to engage young fans, I think we need to work on the transition from, we've got the Young Dons Trust, and making sure there's a youth council. In the same way we have a Merton Youth Council, have one here at the club that perhaps meets every 3-4 months, so we can demonstrate to young people that their opinions really do matter. And the third policy I referenced was how, with a view to the move to Plough Lane, thinking about having focus groups whereby we actively talk to people in the community perhaps that we haven't directly had involvement with, and hear their thoughts about how they want, how they think Plough Lane can be used, and how they think they can go about engaging with our club when we move back to Merton.
And what are your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years, on the pitch and off the pitch?
Oh, crikey! Do you know what? We had a great in the Prince of Wales the other day. We were having a great conversation about how that we were talking about. Is there something about the Burton about this new Ardley team? And how Neil Ardley is now, is he now the 4th longest serving manager or 6th? There were sackings the other day.
That's right.
And actually, I think I really want to make sure we continue that continuity on the pitch with the management structure. I think we can be really proud of what he's doing there. And if we did a Burton and got to the Championship, we've got so much faith in the football club side of the board that they will be sensible, and it would just insulate us from that relegation for another year, from, say, down to League 2. When you're there, you just think, oh no, what if we get to non-league? It's hard to answer that question whilst remaining rational and calm on a match day. But off the pitch, my big ambition is to make sure, as a local school teacher, I will feel really proud about some of the characters who come down on match days on the back of seeing the memorabilia in my classroom. Boys you wouldn't necessarily expect to come to a football match. Some come by themselves, which blows me away. And it just reminds me that on On a match day, I want to continue these successful initiatives where we say it's free on a match day to come, so we can get more young fans coming. In turn, I want to make those young fans are thinking about the volunteer opportunities ahead. I've just gone through loads of personal statements for my sixth form students, and I'm always really impressed by how the depth of some of them, how shallow some of them are, how they haven't perhaps got a lot to talk about. I know you chaps do this in a voluntary capacity, and I just think if we had a real structure, we could really go about headhunting more young people for those roles, whilst building on the successful work of the current volunteer cohorts.
Either or questions to finish off then. First answer that comes into your head.
Yeah.
Which was more memorable for you, Wembley or the City of Manchester Stadium?
Wembley, because we got to come back to Wimbledon immediately after. That was phenomenal.
Alan Bennett or Alan Kimball?
Alan Kimball, for how I was a young kid, phenomenal cross for the ball.
And finally, be very, very careful with this one. Luton or Watford?
Watford. But I'd prefer Luton away. Was that a trick question?
Just say Luton, just say Luton.
Luton.
Perfect. Good man. Well done.
Sean McLaughlin. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and I work for a small trade finance bank in London, and I watched it from the main stand. I've been in the main stand ever since I brought my kids when they were 6 and 8 and in the family block, but the family block moved and I haven't, so.
Okay, and what roles have you performed over the last 2 years on the Dons Trust board?
Primarily treasurer. I've actually done it for 10 years now. I volunteered when the previous treasurer resigned, and I've been there ever since. I'm also involved working with Mark and Matt, looking at the overall structure and what we need when we move to the new ground, because obviously it'll be a complete change in the club. I mean, the fans' number of attendances will double. We're going to have a whole banqueting suite, hospitality suite that we'll need to use, so the revenues are probably going to treble, and it will need a completely different structure to manage it.
Now, should you be re-elected, how do you see, or how would you like to see your role on the board change?
Well, I would volunteer to continue as treasurer. I think you need an accountant in that role. As part of that role, take particular interest in looking at the management accounts of the football club and the budget of the football club, and using my experience to challenge those, because we need to make sure that the club is run on a sound financial footing so that we do preserve fan status. I'll carry on looking at the organisation, and to be honest, I think that's enough along with the day job.
What's your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years on the pitch and off the pitch?
On the pitch, I think in the 5 years, I would like to see us, because that will be in the new ground, I'd like to see us in the Championship. I think we can do that. If you see where we are now, we have always overachieved, and I don't see why with a good manager, good financial management, we can't do that. So I'd think the Championship. Off the pitch, hopefully in the new stadium, make a success of that, develop that commercially, so that we can put as much money into the playing budget. Because at the end of the day, the way that the club is run is that the playing budget, it comes out at the end. So you look at what your revenues are, you look at what all the costs are, and the balance is the playing budget, because we're not going to borrow to fund the playing budget, because that's a recipe for disaster. It's improved a lot. I think probably every single year I've been on it, I would say it's got stronger and better. We're focused a lot more now on the more strategy and less on the sort of the day-to-day stuff that people really want to know about, which is the football club. So 4 years ago, probably half the meeting will be discussing details about the football club. Now it's in Eric's report and it's just dealt with in 5 minutes. So I think we do that. We just need to continue that. And I think the other thing that we need to do, in 5 years' time, I don't know who's going to be on the board, who's going to be on which board, but with the new structure, I think we'll need to cement more formally the oversight role. For instance, the chairman and the deputy chairman attend the AFC Wimbledon board meetings. You might need to look at whether that's more formalised, to have a more formal line of reporting there.
Cool. Then just some either-or questions to finish off.
Yep.
In your memory, which was the greater playoff victory, Accrington Stanley or Fleetwood Town?
Accrington. Coming from behind. Amazing.
probably already answered this one, but do you prefer watching games from behind the goal or down the side? Think of it as an away game, maybe.
No, away game behind the goal. Probably, if I was starting it clean, I'd be behind the goal. But the fact is, because I've been in the same seats now for, what is it, 14 years? You tend to know a lot of people around you. So you now my son's at university. I used to go with my son. A couple of my mates don't come as much. So at least then you've got people to talk to. So I love both, actually.
And finally, Alan Reeves or Jake Reeves?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'll go Jake. I think he is totally underrated as a player by most of the fans. I think he's a superb player, and I think we're lucky to have him. Although I think Alan did a great job and is doing a great job, so it's a difficult one.
Well, I'm Tom Adam, been on the Dons Trust board for some time now. I'm retired, although I run a small business at the same time. I sit in the president's area at the back row there. Get a good view from there, and I've been following the club for many years, as a lot of you know.
What roles have you performed over the past year on the Dons Trust board?
Well, I've continued to keep an eye on the technical issues in relation to the stadium, because that's basic upon my experience on Kings Meadow, seeing Kings Meadow through, brought it up to scratch, fit for purpose, and also into the Football League. So I've maintained that oversight. The other thing I've been very much involved in is fundraising, getting the fundraising strategy together. Now, we're in a situation now where we've got not only the club to consider, but we have the foundation, we have the academy, we have the ladies, and as well as the trust, and all raising money, and that has to be coordinated and being brought together. So that's what's been keeping me busy, and hopefully we're very close to getting a strategy together now. In fact, in the next few years there's going to be quite a lot of fundraising needed. My indication is that based upon the amount we raised over the last 10 years, we're going to have to secure the same level in the next 5 years in order to make sure that we can pick up any shortfall as we move forward for the new stadium. The stadium, as I'm sure everybody appreciates, is going to be a tremendous growth step for us that we've got to accommodate. So we've got to make sure financially and from a fundraising point of view that we can match the demand that's coming out across all the areas I mentioned.
I mean, you kind of touched on the answers to my next question, but was there anything else you see about the role on the board, or your role on the board, or anything you'd like to see change should you be re-elected over the next couple of years?
Well, not really. The board is going quite well at the moment, which I'm quite impressed with, the quality of people, although they've always been pretty good, but particularly one that seems to be focused particularly on what we've got to do now for the future. I'd like to see, obviously, us speaking closer with our members, because don't forget that we represent the members of the Dons Trust. They are the owners. We have to make sure that we are fully accountable to them for what we do, and make sure the communication is well established. And some good work's going on in that area at the moment.
Okay, and what are your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years off the pitch, on the pitch?
On the pitch, well, again, I'm maybe boring a few, but I've always said that let's get into the championship, and that's what my aim is, to try and get to there. Maybe we may have to consolidate a little bit in this league. It'd be lovely if we can move forward, but so that's my aim really, and making sure that we've got a stadium at Plough Lane that we're all working on very hard, very keen on. So that's my main aim, is making sure that, and of course you then have to make sure you've got the right organisation, business organisation with the club, and you've also got to make sure that you've got the fundraising coming along, which I just mentioned. But so business organisation is another key area that we're going to have to focus strongly on in the next year or so.
And just a few either or questions to finish off. So first answer that comes into your head. This season, would you rather get to the third round of the FA Cup or beat Milton Keynes twice in the league?
Well, I think the obvious answer is to beat the opposition. They all know everybody knows my feeling as well. And I know everybody's entitled to attend these matches. And my view is fairly clear that, I tend to exercise rather than trying to keep back from it all. But that doesn't stop people that feel they've got to support our team to go forward to this place, I mention, and support our guys, because they do need support. But I've been around too long I still feel what we went through.
Do you prefer pre-match? Do you prefer a carvery or a pie?
I prefer a pie, actually, but because I don't eat a lot at lunchtime. I never have done, so I tend to, even at work, I used to always have an evening meal and a breakfast. So the carvery is not one that I go to, but if it's important, if we've got some business to take place, then I'm quite happy to participate in the carvery.
And finally, Joe Sherin or Joe Kinnear?
Well, to me it has to be Joe Kinnear, because he's taken us through. Joe Sheeran did us a lot of good, and occasionally I meet Joe, even now, and it's nice to be able to talk to him about the club and where we're going. And he's watching it all the time as well.
Tim Hillier, I'm a long-standing supporter of AFC Wimbledon and have kept the same seats from 2002 in Block H. My day job is a finance manager for a charity.
So you're seeking election for the first time to the Dons Trust Board?
Yes.
But you've undertaken a number of roles elsewhere in the club. Can you run us through what those have been?
Yeah, going back to the start, I was a very active member of the Wimbledon Independent Supporters Association. So we fought against the move to Dublin initially and tried to keep Wimbledon playing at Plough Lane or in Merton. Actually identified the Plough Lane site as the appropriate site, so what goes around comes around, and happy days coming up. Wimbledon Independent Supporters formed the Dons Trust in 2002, so I was on a couple of the steering groups for that. I unfortunately missed the big day of the formation of the club, because the FA timed that to coincide with the start of the World Cup in Japan, so a number of us were already en route to that. Having said that, I was instrumental in supplying some of the furniture for the first office at Ivers Printing Works. I sold memberships at the launch day at Wimbledon Theatre, and I was on the turnstiles for the first game. So from there on, I was asked by Eric to run the club shop. We had a great bunch of volunteers then, as we do now, and we have, from the early days, that the online shop was always mooted. It was run by a specific team of volunteers at that time, which continued until a couple of years ago. But Matt Haylock decided to go off and play with lion cubs in South Africa, which left a huge void. So I've stepped into that role, and I've been looking after the mail order, while my colleagues Jerry, Ian and the others have been running the club shop on match days.
What changes would you like to instigate as a Dons Trust board member?
Well, I've got a lot of fresh ideas, because I'm exposed to initiatives at other clubs through my involvement with the Football Supporters Federation, where I'm on the National Council, and Supporters Direct, where I'm a co-opted director. So I see what happens at other clubs. So there are a number of things that I'd like to see happen, many of which I've mentioned in my manifesto. I don't know all the answers, so these are questions to be raised, and possibly they've been raised before. I've raised them myself in the past. Fundamental is to maintain the security of the club as a fans-owned club. So underlying that, and this is really boring stuff, is that we've got to change our constitution. I've raised this at every SGM and every AGM of the Dons Trust over the last few years, since Supporters Direct drafted a constitution for fans-owned clubs. because the constitution we've got was not designed for that purpose, and hence has got flaws in it. Nothing wrong with it, but we can do better. So that's fundamental, underlying everything else. We're often asked in the club shop for vouchers and things like that, and benefits of season ticket holders and membership. I'd like to turn that around somewhat, because my background before working for a charity was in retail, and I want to encourage more sales, and so I'd look to launch an AFC Wimbledon card, which would be a cash card. You could load it with money or give it as a gift, and we could perhaps build into that a points system as a reward. So rather than undermining our pricing, and the reason for the existence of the club shop is to raise money for the club. So I wouldn't want to undercut our prices by giving discounts. I'd want to reward the loyalty of those who regularly spend and visit us. Over and above that, I'd look to boost club Don's Trust membership by looking again at whether we can link season ticket holders into automatic Don's Trust membership. And I think that's an easy win. We could build that into any future price increases, so that it's not an added price to our supporters, but it would mean that our membership becomes stronger as the trust.
So what are your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years?
Fundamentally, we must keep the essential of remaining fans owned. Over and above that, we must be sustainable, so we don't want any nasty shocks financially or administratively. And then we must allow our manager to manage. So we've done very well up to now. Wimbledon have got a great history of supporting our managers, which is why they stay with us for a long time, and even once they've left us, they come back and visit. I feel that in our new stadium we will be fit for the championship. Whether we can reach there, because it's a competitive sport, that's up to us to continue maintaining our support for the manager.
Just some quick ones to finish off then. First answer that comes into your head, quick either or questions. So this season, which would you prefer? A game in the third round of the FA Cup or promotion to the Championship?
Promotion. It's all about the Football League.
Do you prefer blue or green?
Blue.
And finally, John Mayne or John Meads?
John Meads is an awesomely good player, and hopefully he stays with us and helps us get to a higher level, but wish him all the best if a great offer comes in and he has to take it.
Yeah, I'm Nigel Higgs. I'm a co-owner of an information management consultancy, which we largely work with financial services companies. I sit in the President's Lounge seats, so I sit in the back row of the director's box currently with my daughter and son-in-law.
So what roles have you performed over the past 2 years on the Don's Trust board?
The last 2 years I've been pursuing a number of different things. One of the biggest kind of time takers on the Don's Trust is to stay on top of all of the different activities that are going on. So it's been a really busy time with the stadium happening, with the plough lane, and the role of the Don's Trust is really around overseeing what happens at the football club at the operational level. So the trust board itself is not operational directly with club matters, so a lot of the work that trust board members do is receiving reports and papers, looking at plans, looking at budgets, making sure that we're staying on the right track, asking the right questions of the executives, and in particular the chief executive, who reports every month to the football club board. So a lot of the time is taken up with doing that. That's people shouldn't underestimate what that involves. When I was re-elected to the board 2 years ago, one of the things I had in my manifesto was that I wanted to encourage fairness and diversity. So I've been taking forward the idea that the club should adopt the London Living Wage for all our employees and seek to become accredited as a living wage employer. So that's been an interesting journey. Back in February 2015, we passed a motion that we would like the club to be to become a living wage employer and get that accreditation, and we've been really kind of working towards that since then. We've achieved that status for all our employed staff, all our full-time employed staff, and we're working hard with the executive to get that rolled out to subcontractors, people like the catering, make sure all the bar staff are at that level as well. So that's something, again, I've got on my platform, and I hope people will support, because I think, as a club that's rooted in its community, we should be promoting, fairness and equality and diversity, and paying people a living wage is a big part of that in my mind. So that's taken a fair amount of my time. I also co-lead. So one of the things we've done is set up strategic direction, because we're aware that the club is going to ideally be moving into a new home within the next 2-3 years. So we have to plan what will happen in that future organisation. So one of the roles I have is to, with one of the other board members, Mark Davis, is to look at what that future organisation should be. So we're doing a proposal around that, which will be going to the members in due course. So that's one of the other things.
How do you see then, or how would you like to see your role on the board change over the next 2 years, should you be re-elected? Yeah,
I mean, I think we still get a little bit of criticism about the quality and frequency of our comms and our communications. So again, something else I put in my platform 2 years ago was to try and push forward improving communications, improving engagement with members. I still think we've got some way to go with it. I think the recent videoing of the general meeting that was held at Wimbledon Brewery was great, because that made it more accessible to more people who didn't necessarily be able to attend. I think things like the podcast are great. I really encourage these kind of more modern collaboration, social media type tools, and I think we've got some way to go to achieve that. One of the things that we perhaps fall down with is the kind of difference between the club and the trust, and is it one organisation, is it two organisations, what's the connection and who does what. I think we're fairly clear at it, but I'm not sure the fan base and the membership are that clear on it. So I think we've got to be able to communicate better what we're about, what we're responsible for, what we're not responsible for, where we can help members, where we can help fans, because although we are first and foremost responsible to our members, we're also responsible to the wider fan base and the community, because that's in our constitutional aims to promote football in the area. I think that would be something I'd like to get more involved with. I'm very keen on growing the membership. I think one of the ways that we'll remain strong. I'm a passionate believer in fan ownership as the model for the club going forward. So I think we need to do that. We need a strong, active, engaged membership. We need to make sure people know how to renew. We need to make sure people know how to join. We need to encourage more people to join. We need to look at things like could we decrease the membership and make it more accessible to people. Most of the people on the board, £25 a year doesn't sound like a lot, but to some people in society that is a lot. And we need to try and think of ways we could make it more accessible. We also need to consider whether or not these should be wrapped up in some way with a form of season ticket membership as well. So season ticket holders, could there be some way we could pull those two things together? That's been talked about for a long time. Is there some way that we could do that which wouldn't have tax implications, which is one of the reasons it's often kind of put on the back burner. So I think there's things we can do around that. I'd like to take more of a role in membership and get engaged with that.
So what are your ambitions for AFC Wimbledon over the next 5 years on the pitch and off the pitch?
So on the pitch, I'd like us to continue to be in the top half of League One, certainly the rest of this season. I wouldn't want us skirting around down the bottom again. That's always a bit too nervy. We do have a little bit of a buffer now. Obviously, it was a lot more nervy when we were in League Two, because disaster for the club would be relegation out of the Football League. And we've come back once. Coming back twice might be a tough ask for us, particularly if we were just about to move into the stadium. So I think we've got to make sure that we're secure and comfortable at this level, that we give the football club all the support we can to build the resources to make sure that we're strong in all departments. Obviously something I'm very proud of and still very keen on seeing to continue to support the club is the youth academy. I think we're seeing that make great strides, with players starting to come into the squad and make a big difference. So I want to see us continue to go down that route to support youth development as a way to manage our budget, balance our books, and be successful, as it seems that we're able to do both at the moment. So, give the club's executive and the football staff all the support they need to stay in the top half of League One. If we can get pushing in, as we are now, into the playoffs, get to Wembley again would be great. Automatic promotion would be just another dream. But, from what I've seen this season, we're playing so well, that could be a possibility. So, for now, let's keep that. That'll keep the interest going. It's important to keep the interest going. Continue to be successful in the run up to the hopefully the move to Plough Lane. So that when we go back there, we're either still a challenging League One club, or perhaps in your wildest dreams it could be promotion. The preceding season that we go up and we start in Plough Lane as a Championship club. That would be great. I think if we could aim as our medium term aim to be an established Championship club in our new stadium, continue to grow it up past its initial capacity, continue to extend the facilities there, continuing to grow the fan base and grow the interest in AFC Wimbledon, what we stand for. That would be very satisfying for me as somebody who started out on the journey. So that's kind of where I'm going with it.
And finally, quick fire either or questions. First one. In the FA Cup this season, would you rather we got drawn against Merstham or Manchester United?
Manchester United.
Are you a badge person or a scarf person?
Neither, really.
Pick one, Nigel. It's either or.
Okay. Well, I'm more often with a bag than I am with a scarf. At football, I usually have a scarf, but it's a bit warm for it at the moment.
Fair enough. And finally, Connor Smith or Michael Smith?
Michael Smith.
So big thank you to all candidates for taking the time to speak to us on Saturday. We wish you all the best for the forthcoming election. As I said before, voting opens this coming Monday, November the 7th, and it will close on the 28th of November at 11:59 p.m. Don's Trust members, whoever you vote for, however you choose to use your vote, please remember to use your vote. It is what our club is founded on, being fan-run and democratically organised. Very, very important. All manifestos and mini-manifestos are available now at www.thedonstrust.org for you to have a look at. On that webpage is also a link to WebJam, where you can speak to all the candidates. And we've been joined now by Jane Lonsdale, current Don's Trust board member, to discuss the WebJam project. Jane, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Not so bad, thank you. In the middle of a podcast with Stu, so been better. But,
Cheers, thanks. I was still listening.
Oh, sorry, you're still there, aren't you? Oh, never mind. Not like you wouldn't have heard it on the broadcast anyway. So, Jane, WebJam then. For those of you, or for those of our listeners, I should say, that are still unsure, what exactly is the Don's Trust WebJam?
So the Trust WebJam is an online exclusive social media site for Trust members where they can communicate with each other, communicate with board members, ask board members questions, find out some exclusive stuff just to do with the trust and the board, that kind of thing. The DT official site, which is the disucss.org, is the place for everybody who isn't a member and members to go to. So that's got all of kind of our outward facing stuff. But if you're a member of the trust, then you should be coming and having a look at WebJam, particularly at the moment as well, because we've got the Don's Trust elections at the moment, and there's a whole part of the site which is dedicated to the elections. The candidates' mini manifestos and their full manifestos are now available. The candidates are all signed up to use WebJam, so they're able to answer questions direct on there.
So what's the latest then with where do we stand at the moment with WebJam then?
So you might recall I've spoken about it before on the podcast. So when I joined the board in 2013, one of the things I wanted to do was to get better engagement between our members and the board. There was a few initial things very early on when I was on the board where I thought, God, if I really knew what the members felt about this, I could contribute better to this discussion. And set about trying to find a tool, and we've 2.5 years down the line, we now have launched a site. We've worked with the company, they're based in Tolworth, and we've now developed and launched the site. We've got over 450 members now registered to the site who are using it. We sent emails out to all our members with an invitation to join between the 5th and the 19th of September this year. So all our members will have received an invitation to join via email at that point. If you can't find that email, or if you haven't received that email, then you need to contact webmaster at thedonstrust.org, and I'll repeat that. So it's webmaster at thedonstrust.org, who will be able to reissue you an invite as long as you are a trust member.
So, Jane, it's obviously very early days with the WebJam. How has it gone? How's the interaction been? Has it been obviously what you expected?
So it's quite difficult to determine what does success look like, because with all social media, we know that we've got lurkers, we know that we've got people who ask questions, we know we've got contributors, we know we've got people who have registered and done very little more since then, and we've got some very vocal people who are asking questions every day, which is great. That so it's there for people to use should they wish to use it. When we first talked about it and how we were going to use it as a board, we didn't set ourselves a target of users. What we wanted to do was give people an opportunity to use it should they wish, and have a kind of medium where people can contact the board direct. You've always been able to do that. We've got the kiosk on a match day and we've got our own email addresses, but this is where kind of debates can happen in real time, as it were. And there's been a few debates on there recently. There's been talk about the stadium when we finally got the last piece of the jigsaw and the planning stuff. We've got there's been a whole discussion around ethical sponsorship and stuff like that. So it's quite difficult to determine success, as it were, but having 450 members registered, that's more than we ever get to either an SGM or an AGM.
Communication is always a massive thing with Don's Trust, in agendas and so forth like that. This is a great opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, we always talk about communicating, and we as you say, a lot of work does go on the board, and we're not particularly good at saying what it is we do. We've tried various ways in the past. We've had the as part of the minutes, we have an activity log. Not all board members fill that in. If you ask a board member what they'll do, they very happily talk to you. But getting that message out to the wider membership, we're not particularly good at doing that. And this is a way that can be used to do that.
Well, thank you very much, Jane.
Lovely, thank you.
Poleon Go last week. Stu did not get Queen's Park Rangers Loftus Road last week. Not sure how he didn't manage to get that. Hopefully better luck this time. Don Poleon, to help Stu out, has decided to stay in London.
Oh, happy dappy days.
What sort of days? Hippy dappy days?
Happy dappy days.
Right, as you do. He's back on the London Underground, Stu. He's back on the tube. From Shepherd's Bush, he's gone on the Central Line to Bond Street, and there he has changed. I'm not going to give you any more clues than that.
He's gone to Bond Street. What line is Bond Street on?
So that's why, yeah. I was being a little bit cryptic by not telling you exactly what line he's gone on to.
So we could be anywhere, couldn't we?
Well, no, we can't be in Glasgow, for instance.
Let's think my logic of Nick's thinking. He won't go for something else in West London, so he's probably going to go either to East London or North London. Let's go for the London Stadium.
It's a good guess, but it's not correct, and I must also say, my logic, it's not my logic, it's Don Poleon. Every week he travels to these grounds, Stu, just for you to play this game.
I'm pleased he does. I just wish he'd make it a bit easier for me.
Well, let's see if you can get it from the second clue. Dom has noted it's a very short walk to the stadium from the underground station on a very narrow footpath, and in the distance, as he's walking towards the stadium, you can see another stadium, the Arch of Wembley.
Ooh. So it's got to be... What grounds can you see? Barnet.
Wow. Second clue, that might be a record. You've got it on the second clue. Stu, this is a Dear Diary moment.
It's just my logic of geographical locations, and of course Wembley is my latest visit, so everyone knows what's around Wembley, don't they?
Your logic of geographical locations. Is there logic with geographical locations?
No, there's no logic at all. Me being used. Joe, I feel better now because I was so gutted last week, and I got so much grief from fellow fans about not knowing Loftus Road that I actually feel better now. My confidence has been restored.
Yes, well, you have slightly redeemed yourself. There is one more clue, because you haven't actually given me the name of that stadium.
Oh, that's cheating.
No, it's not.
I can't remember what the new grounds.
Well, do you want the third clue to maybe try and help you out?
Go on, then.
Dom has noticed that he thinks the stadium is quite small, but he says the atmosphere is buzzing.
Oh, yeah, of course. I got it. The Hive Stadium.
Well done. How have you got that, Stu? May I ask?
Well, I was thinking about Underhill, and I remember, do you know what, also, when they go on to Barnet and they talk, I kept remember laughing when they used to say it's called the Hive Stadium. I'm like, really? Have you got to pronounce it like that?
Pronounce it like that? How else do you pronounce it? The Hivy?
I just wouldn't say it. It just sounds, you know what I mean? But obviously they're all buzzing when they're singing there, and they bless them.
There we go. So well done, Stu. Redeemed yourself this week with Barnet. Maybe Dom will go further afield next week. Maybe he'll go to Gig Lane in Bury, which is where we're going to be on Saturday in the FA Cup. Now, I've done a little bit of research for a change.
Okay.
Do you want to know what Neil Ardley's record is in away cup games as manager of AFC Wimbledon?
I can't believe you did that, because I can tell straight away it's rubbish.
It is rubbish. Rubbish.
Yeah.
Across all cup competitions, not including playoffs, because they're not cup, they're league games, we have played 12 cup fixtures away from home. We have won 2 of them, drawn 2 of them, and lost 8 of them.
Crikey. So 2 of them must be Wickham away.
Yep. And there's a very, very famous one that's the other one.
I can't remember now. 1 second.
Come on, Stu. Cup competition. Doesn't have to be FA Cup.
Oh, yeah, of course.
There we go.
Of course. The team we don't want to mention.
No, and it's not Watford.
Well, they don't exist, so we say it's 11, don't we? That's not good. You've all of a sudden, my confidence has just all of a sudden been dented a little bit.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is I think the 2 draws were both York. Both times we got FA Cup first round replays back at Kings Meadow.
And one on one money on as well, because it was when we played them in the league game, I remember probably very closely. It was so obvious that when you play each other so many times, you sort of cancel each other out. Although I would say I'm not probably like me too much. I think we're going to win quite comfortably on Saturday. Bury are not a very good team.
Well, we did beat them last time out quite recently, and we've got them again very shortly as well in the league. So logic suggests it'll probably be another draw and a replay, so we play them again.
Possibly. I'm going to go against that. I just think Bury are not a good team at all. I didn't see them against us. Saw them against Bolton. I think they've lost now 6 on the spin, 7 on the spin. It's a great time to have them. It's a perfect draw for us. Any
other cup games that take your fancy from the FA Cup first round fixtures? I think we're all interested in how Mertham get on, of course, as we discussed previously. Is there any others that took your eye?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't got the pictures up.
Dear me, Stu.
I always forget this bit. I don't worry about everyone else. Do you know what I mean? The FA Cup's just about us, really, isn't it? I'm drastically going to try and find the pictures. Whilst I'm trying to fill time, to be fair, Merstrom was there on Monday night, and they're really looking forward to it. They actually gave or given Oxford 1,000 tickets for the game. Their ground holds at 2,000, so they've given over half their gate. Well, exactly half their gate to Oxford, and Oxford has sold 700 so far. So
poor show. Oxford should be selling 1,000. They really should.
Yeah, I think the rest were going on general sale as of Tuesday, but they're putting a stand in now. I think a 550-seater stand, and of course they're going to get the pool money now, the TV pool money. So they're probably in line to probably look at probably about 150,000, which I'm probably positive is going to last them probably about 2 years worth of money. So it just shows you what a great draw it was for Merstham, and well done to them.
Well done indeed. Our old goalkeeper Ryan Clark will be on TV. Do not forget on Friday night, Eastleigh hosting Swindon.
Yeah, after conceding 4 at Barrow on the weekend.
To Byron Harrison as well, I believe.
Yeah, got beat up as well. If you look at him, he's got a sponge thing in his nose and everything. It looks like he's it might be a nosebleed because Barrow is so far up north, isn't it? But fixture wise, there's not loads, is there? I'm just looking here.
Maidstone Rochdale could be interesting, perhaps. Boreham Wood Notts County. There's a few.
There's obviously a potential upset for Spennymoor Town.
Yes.
Who travel to a certain team. That'd be a great thing, just to knock another nail in there. Well, anywhere really. Cambridge Dover doing well in the conference. Not loads. Bolton Grimsby again. Grimsby doing well in League Two. So there's a few there. There's a few like Whitehawk versus Stourbridge. So one of the giant killings ones are going to get into the second round. So yeah, I love the FA Cup. You can't beat the FA Cup first round.
Okay, so we may have run a little late, but as always, we have sounded great. But that does bring us to the end of this week's show. Thank you very much for joining us, Stu.
Thank you, always a pleasure.
Updates from Berry will be available on all our social media at 9YRS Podcast, be it on Twitter or Instagram and Facebook as well. And all that leaves me to say is please join us next week. We're going to be joined, Stu, by someone who was on the show quite regularly last season, Jose Mourinho.
Oh, great stuff.
And he's going to define for us what he means by the term specialist in failure. We'll see you then.